Two words of the day, biological degradation. Those are scary words. When I say those to people, Dina, and they're like, what? Degradation, biological. Listen, everyone, as we're aging, which we all are from the day that we're born, right? We are degrading. There are certain things that are degrading, and we just can't get past it, right? I mean, sometimes we
Yeah.
put an age, like a chronological age to it, but I don't think we even need to put a chronological age to it. Like we are degrading biologically, and some systems, like the muscular system, sometimes degrade a little bit faster because we're not really emphasizing that, right? And I kind
Yeah.
of feel like some athletes, it's really okay. I'm gonna get on my soapbox real quick, D. I feel like as we age, a lot of people move towards more of the endurance-based sports, which usually scream lower intensity, less stress to the fast twitch muscle fibers, more stress to the slow twitch, decreasing VO2 max. It's kind of playing along with the whole biological degradation, isn't it?
Yeah. But I
Yeah,
mean, Bob, it's just so much easier to
it
do
is. It
that.
is.
But
Or,
wait a
well, I mean,
minute, does it not help my muscles?
yeah, see, now we're not going to talk about that per se,
Okay, yeah.
but we are talking about muscles and biological degradation
Yeah.
in terms of sarcopenia. And no, this isn't an episode on sarcopenia. It's actually an episode on hydroxymethylbutyrate, aka HMB, in masters athletes. Now, we teased this a little bit in a previous episode. We talked about it a little bit, but we're going to go into a little bit more detail because it's actually a very important potential supplement for us older athletes. Now, I am not going to define older. I'm not going to say a chronological age, but and only because, Dean, I mean, a lot of people maybe in their 30s, maybe they're not doing any strength training, maybe they're already starting to accelerate their biological or their muscular degradation and losing some muscle mass. Who knows, right?
Mhm.
I think more of the research it says like after 40, 45, definitely in the 60s when we start losing a lot more muscle mass. But this is like, I just want to set this whole supplement up, this HMB supplement up, because it could be something on your radar or maybe not. So
Yeah.
let's start on what the heck HMB is.
Aside from that really long word that you were mentioning, yeah.
Hydroxymethylbutyrate, yes.
So it is a metabolite of one of our very important essential amino acids that
And one of
we've
our
talked about,
faves. This is one of our
which
faves.
is leucine.
Oh, why do we like leucine so much?
It is very helpful for supporting and promoting our muscle health
Ah, so
in
we
a
are talking
nutshell.
about muscle, yes. So
Yeah.
leucine actually triggers muscle protein synthesis via mTOR. And because HMB is a metabolite of leucine, it also helps with stimulates muscle protein synthesis via this pathway called mTOR. So
Yeah.
interestingly enough, this is where it kind of gets a little cloudy, right? I feel like, oh, well, wait a second. If HMB is a metabolite of leucine. If I just eat enough leucine-rich foods, aka protein, shouldn't I get enough HMB? Actually, yes, you would, right? But what
Mhm.
are we seeing these days, D, with protein intake?
Oh, well, our intake may just not be happening like the optimal
Exactly.
ranges and consistently.
Right. So we're going to
Yeah.
go on the assumption that maybe you are a little protein deficient in terms of your food sources.
Hmm.
Thus, you're not getting the 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine per meal per day, right? So
Yeah.
we're just making some assumptions. Listen, listeners, if you're one of those who are like, no, I'm spot on with my protein. I've met with Bob and Dean. I listen to you guys. Awesome. You probably, well, you should listen just for maybe some entertainment factor. But maybe this doesn't apply to you. But if you're like, you know what? Yeah, I do struggle a little bit with my protein intake. It's very likely you're not getting enough leucine,
Yeah.
hence not enough HMB. And maybe not to just jump to the supplement thing, right? But maybe you look at HMB because HMB in the context of masters or older athletes has this anti-catabolic effect. Now, there are some other potential, and I say potential based on the research, benefits in terms of bone density, cognitive functioning in older populations, but we really just kind of want to focus on muscular health because muscle's where it's at, right?
Yeah.
Muscle is healthy aging for the most part. So really when we're looking at HMB supplementation, it is actually I've heard that it's actually 20 times more potent than leucine, Dina. I mean,
Yeah.
That's a pretty powerful statement if you think about it,
Yeah.
which is why I feel like people are navigating to HMB. But I also feel like people don't know about HMB because creatine has totally taken light these days,
Hmm.
of which it should. It is an amazing supplement, amazing. But I feel like HMB needs to be heard, right? It needs its
Yeah.
time, and now is the time, right? So we're not promoting it, but we're also not negating it. Obviously, N of one individual, but I kind of feel like, back in the days, check that box again.
Check.
And even currently, when I work with a lot of young athletes, I'm talking like teenage college athletes, young pros, HMB comes up quite a bit, right? So
Yeah.
we're not going to package it into young athletes because it can have different effects. Because obviously, as we're aging, we're actually looking at preventing the loss or the accelerated loss of muscle mass. Where in your youth, you don't care about that stuff. Like, who cares? They're
Right.
just focused on different things. So, not to get on our soapbox of yes, you should be strength training, you should be eating enough protein, but I feel like, looking at the efficacy of using HMB in smaller doses a day could actually be a very positive thing for an older athlete.
Yeah.
What's your take on it, Dee?
Well, and I think about too, as we age, sometimes being more, let's say, at risk for injury, again, depending on our training status, how
Mm,
fit, strong we are. But for the accidents that occur, or injuries that occur, and we might have some downtime from being as physically active, or even the number of, let's say, athletes that are over the age of 60,
mm,
and that whole booming population of like, wow, we can be 70 and do our first ultra marathon,
yeah,
and all
yeah.
this kind of stuff, or do other things in the gym. But if we're not quite aspiring to those goals yet, or we're not quite as fit, maybe we have these bouts of more sedentary times. Would this supplement be helpful? That's interesting. Or as
Mm,
we're kind of becoming more fit, wherever, each of us is in our journey, like this could be helpful in that whole self, improvement area.
yeah. I think it's a good point because you don't have to necessarily, what I just gained from what you said, Dee, you don't have to necessarily be a competitive athlete, even with a competition event, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
you said really, really struck a chord, like just your activities of daily living. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
thinking just a few days ago, what I was doing outside, I was actually, okay, listeners, welcome to Bob Seebahar's life. I was replacing a fence post, and that requires a lot of digging out if you've ever done this before, I don't recommend it. But you have to dig out the old fence posts and the concrete. You have to dig a very big hole. And, I mean, if you're doing it yourself, like I'm carrying 4 to 5 bags of 50 pound concrete, not a short distance. So it's those little things like, oh yeah, like I can still do this, but if I don't have good muscular health, maybe I can't do that. And granted, I'm not saying, listen, you want to hire someone to fix a fence post, whatever. Like, don't hire
Yeah.
me because I'm not going to do it for you because I'm over it. But it just brings light to the, well, maybe it is just activities of daily living sometimes, right? Maybe it's the
Yeah.
strength to pick up your grandkids. Maybe it's the strength to do whatever, move a tree or whatever it is, right? I mean, or maybe even it's like Spartan racing or high rocks or whatever it is these days, right? I mean, sky's the limit. I think everyone knows my emphasis on strength training and even body weight exercises. Like we have to do it. But circling back to getting off my soapbox now, listen, it with HMB also, it's, I feel like it's more highly beneficial for older aging athletes, right? I do feel like there needs to be an exercise stimulus when you take it,
Yeah.
right? So take it
Yeah.
before everything I've read, like take it 30 minutes to 2 hours beforehand, depending on what you're doing. We'll tell you the dose here in a second from what research is telling us. But I feel like it's not just leave it and forget it. You know how like creatine, we just try to saturate the muscles, you take it whenever. HMB is going to take a little bit more work because you have to be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to exercise. This is when I'm going to exercise. Maybe put it in some water or shake or like whatever smoothie even better. But I feel like it's more effective if you're going to use it for a particular situation
Getting more bang for your
because we're
buck, Bob.
eating, yeah, because you're also eating protein throughout the day. Remember what we started with, like
Yeah.
you eat protein, as long as that protein has leucine, you're going to get some HMB from it, right? But you just
Hmm.
need to be eating enough protein. So I feel like this isn't a 365 day a year supplement. It could be
Yeah.
very, very pertinent to certain maybe cycles, or if you're just starting strength training or whatever it is, right? If you're doing more of a strength-based competition, I
Yeah.
feel like there's a lot of great efficacy in HMB. I'm going to ask you a personal question, D. Do you take it or
I
have
do
you taken it?
not. I have
Okay.
not.
Yeah.
No, no.
So I experimented with it early in my career, and then I brought it back actually a few
Oh,
months
good.
ago because of this, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm doing a little bit more strength-based stuff. Even in training for a very ultra run, I'm still doing a lot more strength-based
Yep.
than I probably would have in the past. Because yes, I'm playing the older card. I am older, but that's why the importance of muscle is so up there, right? So
Yeah.
I'm actually utilizing it in my ultra marathon training because I'm doing strength training every single day, even if it's just like
Hmm.
1 or 2 sets of whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
So that's why I'm saying like periodize it if you're going to use it. But what about this dosing thing?
Yeah. What? And I was just going to ask you, Bob, based on your reading of the research,
Hmm.
it sounds like to me it's helpful for synthesizing muscle tissue,
Mm.
but also preventing some of that breakdown,
Yes, yeah, yeah. So
right?
that
So,
anti-catabolic
yeah.
effect. So yeah.
But when we were talking early in the episode about amped and jacked, I mean, this isn't a
Mm.
magic bullet, though,
No.
right? Like, it's not going to turn us into Arnold
And
Schwarzenegger.
you're probably not even going to notice anything except
Okay.
maybe you feel better when you're lifting that dumbbell or carrying that 50-pound bag of concrete. But you know what? There's so many
Yeah.
factors there.
Yeah.
I look at this as, okay, if we can do our best in strength training, maybe even traditional strength training, at least 3 times a day or a week,
Mm,
3 to 4, or even if you just do like some body weight exercises every day or whatever, I feel like this is going to be in addition to that to help the process, but
yeah.
not a magic bullet. And you're not going to look jacked and you're not going to be like, wow, I'm so ripped right now because of HMB. It's not that
Yeah.
type of supplement. It's just not.
Okay. Yeah. Well, dosing wise, Bob, it sounds like it is not massive amounts that we have to
No,
take.
which is great.
So, I mean, that range around like the 1 to 3 grams or so. I mean, there are sources that kind of dose it based on your body weight, but I don't know that that's necessary. It ends up being in this range for most
Yeah, it
human
does.
beings anyways. So, is that kind of your take too in terms of the daily or that dose when we use it?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
the
Yeah.
good dose is 1 to 3 grams a day. Time it. I would always time it before more of a strength
Yeah.
based exercise if
Okay.
possible. But yeah, I mean, otherwise you're just, in my opinion, you're just wasting your money. If you're not going to time it right and do the
Hmm.
right dosage, like why even take it, right?
Hmm.
That's just a waste.
And are you using capsules or powder
I use
or?
powder. I use powder
Mhm.
and I just put it in shockingly, I put it in a smoothie.
Okay, with all the other goodies. Yeah.
But
And
there are certain days that I do it and certain days I don't, right? Depends
okay.
on my training, right? Yeah.
Hmm. And you
Yeah.
don't notice anything. It's not like a beta
I don't.
alanine kind of
Nothing at all. No, I
thing
mean,
or a
literally
caffeine
nothing.
thing.
I'm
Okay.
crossing my fingers, hoping that it's helping my muscle health and hoping that it does what it says it's doing when I
Yeah.
do lift weights and do strength training exercises.
And it sounds like side effect wise, there's really nothing that's been detected or discovered thus far. I mean, I know it's not quite as well researched as something like the creatine.
Right.
But my understanding is in humans, there hasn't been anything with adverse in terms of the dosing that we just mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. So it's relatively safe. But of course, buyer beware, consumer beware, listener beware. Don't overdose this. Don't overdose any supplement. Or I mean, honestly, unless you're
Yeah.
going to talk to someone and have their guidance. But yeah, I mean, if you stay within those dosing recommendations, you'd be totally fine. But now that said, not that I've ever heard this about HMB, but I have with other supplements. Listen, we are all N of one. So that's why I always recommend starting at a lower dosage just to kind of see if you notice any differences, being those negative or positive, because
Mhm.
you can always go up. So I think it's just that safe play and always starting a little bit lower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, this is helpful, Bob. I wonder for our listeners, I would love to know who is using it out there, and so I'm going to invite you, along with Bob, invite you to hop over on our Patreon community, patreon.com/ISN podcast. There's also an app you can use to get
Hmm.
to our community. which are super handy since we spend a lot of time on the phone. But anyway, let us know. Are you using HMB? What have you noticed? What's your dose? Are you thinking about trying it? We want to know. So let us know over there, and we love to engage with you. And also, if you would care to share a few bucks per month to help this podcast be sponsor free, and you enjoy the free content that we are providing you in exchange for a couple bucks per month, that really does help us continue the mission of this podcast and have fun with all of you. And with that, Bob, we are going to wrap this up. And so, listeners, thank you so much for being here, and we'll catch you on our next episode.